You're listening to the InFocus Interview Show, brought to you by photofocus.com, an online publication filled with education and inspiration for visual storytellers. This episode is made possible by our partners, Lume Cube, the world's most versatile light, and Drobo, a smart storage solution. Now here's your host, Vanelli.
Hello and welcome. I'm Vanelli. I'm here on location in Chicago at ClickCon, and this next guest, she's a firecracker. One of my good friends, Bill Buckley, kept bragging about this incredible educator after he came back from the Texas school, and he just kept talking about her nonstop. So I had to look her up, and then when I saw that she was here at ClickCon, I wanted to introduce her to you and just have her lay a large amount of wisdom on all of you. So, my special guest, please welcome Sandra Pearce. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Good. Now, we talked about this, so I'm stumbling to try to figure out your job, quote, title, because you were a photographer for the last 35 years in the film days, but you transformed into this amazing educator who's able to take the complexity of painting in Photoshop and make it real simple. But let's talk about that. What made you switch?
Well, I am a well-kept secret.
Well, not anymore, but go on.
but I have been a well-kept secret. Here, my classes kept growing from the first class to here. But what I do, I am a photographer, but I am a regular artist with oils, acrylics in my past. But I learned how to do Photoshop painting because there was no one to teach me. And so for the last 10 years, I've been teaching other people because no one did Photoshop painting, and I was told I couldn't. That Photoshop you could not paint with, you had to use the other brand.
Corel.
Yes. And I said, the program is way too expansive not to be able to paint with. And so there are things that they've added, but I had already learned to do it and taught myself. And so if you can teach yourself, you know the steps that you had to go through to get there. And so that makes it easier to teach people that have no idea. So I do it down to earth. And you were talking about an older man smiling. I had a 25-year-old today that I could see the smiles on his face and why, because it was going to help him so much.
See, now, the only downside with the podcast is our listeners can't see the excitement and joy on your face when you're talking about this stuff. So, all right, so because I know how Bill learned to transform his images, to help the listeners with this, walk me through. So let's say I start out with a class with you. The first thing you're going to show the class.
The first thing that I'm going to show the class is the tools, and this is what I tell them. I'm going to teach you tools and technique. If I teach you tools and technique, you're going to be able to do anything. So it's my job to teach you every tool in Photoshop that you can use to paint. And not only do I paint with them, I also retouch with them. And so if you learn to paint, you can retouch in such an effortless way. And the more you retouch, the better you get with the tools and the better your paintings become.
Yeah, well, you motivated him to buy, I think he ended up with the Cintiq.
Yes.
Right, because I do a lot of stuff with Wacom,
yes.
and I love my Wacom Cintiq.
Yes.
And Bill got so excited that he went out and said, look, you just can't. There's no way you could do this with a mouse. You really need to have that Cintiq.
Well, one thing on that, I have taught people that have had arthritis, which is very hard to grip pens when you have arthritis. And the lady said, can I still do it? You can still paint with a mouse. The only problem is you can't lift the mouse. So you can't do hair where the ends lift up. And it does limit you because you can't get in tiny places. And once you need to lift and you pull the mouse up, you're through. And the pen, it lifts, and that's why the pen is so much better.
Great. All right. So he talked about the eyes. He showed me. What is your how do you attack the eyes just to make them look like marbles? They just look like they're following you.
Yes. And that goes back to the fact that I know how to draw, and I do an advanced class now where I have them to draw an eye from scratch. And if anyone knows anything about Photoshop, I do each layer for them to be able to see each step. And there are different things that I do with the eye to make them look sparkly and follow you. And there's different brushes that I use.
Great. And there was one of the filters he mentioned. I can't think off the top of my head, but it just made the iris look dramatic.
It wasn't a filter. It was probably the sharpening tool.
Oh yes, that's right. You're right.
Yes.
The sharpening tool.
Yeah, and it's done in a certain way, and it's in a certain step, because we work on eyes probably a half a day. Both eyes, and that includes eyelashes and all the other stuff that goes with it, and prepping, and them learning the tools. I don't know if your audience knows about the mixer brush, but
That's
if they don't, the mixer brush I have found here in Chicago has lightened everybody's eyes up. I'm talking about the people that were here in the class, because most of them, I may have had 5 out of 3 classes that even knew what I was telling them. And in that each class, now they know. It's a simple thing, and you don't have to use cloning. You don't have to use healing brush. There's just so many things that you just use the mixer brush
So
for.
you're going to be proud of Bill, because
I am proud
that
of
was
Bill.
the first thing he said was the mixer brush. And it was like, because we share knowledge, we do this every Monday when I'm in town. We go to Applebee's at 6 for $6 burgers. Now, Applebee's loves us when we walk in.
I'm sure they do.
And they give us this whole section, and it's kind of neat. And we'll record some of the stuff that we talk. And then with each of these people that is part of the group, it's, hey, you're more than welcome to learn as much as you want, but got a penny? Give a penny. Got a thought or got a technique? Share a technique.
Yes.
And right away, the first thing he said was the mixer brush. And I said, ooh, okay. I haven't seen use the mixer brush in God knows how many years. What did you do to fix the blemishes and with the eyes? And he went off, and I was so impressed that he just, the amount of knowledge he retained.
Yes.
Tells me that, oh, she must have taught in short chunks, drilled it into them, and then moved on to the next section, drilled it into them, and they know it.
Well, when you teach, I ask them, please don't work, listen. I want you to look up at the screen. I want you to see what I'm doing and put it in your head first. Secondly, I do it again with them. And thirdly, they can do it alone. And if
That's so cool.
if they get ahead of me, going back over, and I just tell them, I have them to bring extra images, and I tell them to pull one of those up and practice on that.
Good. So, were you ever a school teacher?
No.
Okay, because
That's
I've always wanted to, I've been teaching for over 30 plus years, the martial arts, and I've worked with children my entire life. I was fascinated on how, because my sister is a phenomenal school teacher, I was fascinated on how to teach a kindergartner to read. And the concept is what you just said here. Step 1, listen, I'm going to read this short story to you. The second run through, they read the story with the student.
yes.
And then the third pass, the student reads the story by themselves. So listening to you without formal training and education like that, you're a natural. And I think your excitement and your enthusiasm definitely shows through in the
And
people.
I do get excited about it because it helps. It helps photographers immensely. It has been, when I have people to say, you changed my life.
That's great. So let's photographers, let's put it in this perspective now. You're ready to take your photography to the next level. Let's say you're a
Yes.
wedding photographer.
Yes.
Now, to do what she's recommending and your techniques to every one of your images, that's impossible. Instead, here's a way to increase revenue. You could pick the bride and groom's favorite photo that's going to be a huge portrait. And from there, convert it into a painting using the steps that you're talking about. And it's going to take time. It's not a preset where you just make one click.
No, it isn't. It's not a filter.
And you do one click and, oh, look, it's amazing. Because then you're only going to charge that one-click price. In a case like this, you're taking time to become an artist. And for someone like me, I can barely draw a stick figure. And my good friend Faye Circus and Jane Zeiser, they try teaching me. They always laugh about it. I can't draw a stick figure, but man, can I push pixels around. And
that's all you have to do.
And that's the concept I like your theory on. So for photographers, if you're looking at something that you want to increase revenue, this is a great way to take a sports portrait, a baby portrait, a wedding, something that the couple is going to print on canvas, keep it for a lifetime. This is when you'll use your techniques.
Yes.
And then if you're a hobbyist that just loves to paint and create, here's a technique. My cousin Nick is a phenomenal artist. And what he does with oil painting and color painting or watercolors, it's phenomenal. I've always wanted to get him more into the digital side. He says he loves smelling the fumes.
Well, then you just open up a can of turp and you put it on your desk, and then when you've smelled enough, you put the lid back on it and you put it up. And then you feel like, that's what I tell my students. But it's not only for people that want to have paintings. It's also for photographers that want to retouch in a way that you can't tell you've retouched. And this glass glare, I showed them today how to get rid of glass glare.
Oh, that's great.
Turkey necks, we know what turkey necks are. We all do. I showed them today how to take care of that. And they were unbelieving because they've never, you cannot do it.
So, you know what? It's funny because when I asked you to describe what you do, the first thing you said was, you know what? It's hard. It's hard to describe. And you turn to the few people that came like extra early to get a front row seat. Can any of you describe what I actually do? And they're like, no, it's kind of like magic.
They do call it magic.
Yeah, one called it black magic. No.
That'll work.
It was voodoo magic. No, but like you said, and I like that, I'm focusing on the painting side because I've always been fascinated on things I can't do. As from the retouching side, glass flare, when a photographer takes a photo by accident, or I shouldn't say by accident, when a photographer takes that image and they make a mistake and you have that ugly glass glare.
It goes away when I teach you.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, of course, like you said, the turkey necks. And here's my philosophy on retouching. If the subject's own mother can't recognize them, you've gone too far.
Well, but the way I retouch, you can never tell that I even retouch. That's
perfect.
The great thing about it. It's still photographic. And so you can keep it photographic and not carry it as far as what it is. So, but photographers, it does a great thing for their, and if I just tell you, I'm going to teach you to retouch, everybody says, I already know how to retouch, I don't need that. But the people that come to my class when I'm retouching, and you don't want to have to take people's glasses off, they don't feel comfortable. And so I tell them, pose them the way you want to, leave their glasses on, and we can get rid of that.
Gotcha. Well, that's awesome. Now, people are all excited. They're listening to this. How do they get a hold of you, take one of your classes? Where can they find more about you?
Well, they look on my website after I get back home and get everything put in for next year. I teach in lots of different states, Oregon, Utah, California, Texas, Indiana.
Man, this Florida girl gets around.
I do. And so I do workshops and I do private at my house. And so you would just look up Sandra Pearce Photography. If you put that in Google, it'll show you where to find me.
Well, that's great. Now, are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, not as a business. I have
Personal?
Yeah, it's personal. It's Sandra Pearce.
Gotcha. And what about Instagram?
I have an Instagram. I don't post there.
Gotcha.
I don't sell myself very well. I stay very busy, but I always tell people, this is one of the things I do. I give them my phone number and say, if you run into a problem, text me, and then I'll tell you when to call me, because I'd rather talk to you about it than I had to text back.
Well, you are definitely a true artist and a great educator, because again, that's in order to, for great educators have that ability to put themselves out there for their students. And we've always said we're here to serve the students aren't here to serve us.
That's right.
And as long as the people I'm watching, you're following, and the motivation they have, they're willing to share that with others, then our job as teachers is done. We were able to disseminate to more than one person.
Well, I won't be around all the time. And I don't really want what I know to go away and people not be able to enjoy what I can teach them.
Well, that's awesome. Well, if you have a chance to check her out you have the Texas, I know you teach at the Texas school.
Yeah, I'll be at Texas school. I'll be at West Coast School. That's one's in April, one's in June. But I have a calendar on my website that's really out of date right now, because
You've been traveling.
I have been traveling.
Thank you so much for taking time out.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are listening to the InFocus Interview Show. If you like these interviews, be sure to subscribe to our weekly Photo Focus podcast on photofocus.com. Thank you for joining us.